Okay, so today we're going to be taking a look at the Butterfly Labs single SC or supercomputer line of products, mainly the Jalapeno and the Little Single, which have now just been renamed to the 5 and 25 gigahash per second miners. If you haven't heard of Bitcoin miners before or anything about Bitcoin, check YouTube. There's tons of videos. People explain all kinds of stuff about why it's good, why it's bad, and why it's pretty awesome. But today we're just going to be looking at the hardware. Now these guys are Butterfly Labs' entry into the ASIC market, or Application Specific Integrated Circuit. These guys contain custom silicon chips that were produced by Butterfly Labs, and they were the first ones to announce they were going to do so. However, they were not the first ones to market, and there have been a lot of problems getting these guys out the door. There's also plenty of videos on that on YouTube, and lots of people crying scam, and it's not really a scam, it's more of a failed business venture. But either way, a lot of people are probably going to lose money. But I was lucky. I was one of the first orders. I was in the first week of orders, so I was one of the first guys to get one of these bigger units. The little ones have been shipping out for quite a while now, and they're pretty well through the backlog already. But yeah, they're way behind on the bigger ones, and they also sell the mini rig, which is huge. That one does 500 gigahashes per second. They were originally supposed to do 1,500 gigahashes per second, but their design team missed their estimates by quite a large margin. The chips used about 6 times as much power as they originally wanted to, so they basically had to redesign everything, and everything got bumped up a case size. The Jalapeno was originally supposed to be only about this tall, and it was supposed to be completely USB powered. But yeah, it got moved up to the single case, which is supposed to be this guy, and then they had to make these guys from scratch because they didn't anticipate the power problems from the beginning. This guy has 120mm fans on each end to blow air through the whole thing like a tunnel. The little Jalapenos have just one fan that pulls it in from the front and shoots the hot air out the back. But obviously these are just the housings. I've removed both of them from their housings, and they're sitting over there because I like the hardware to run as cool as possible. It also helps cut down on noise. Like, I hate companies that use these kind of punched metal fan grills and put them right up against the fan, because then it ends up making a really annoying whiny noise. But over here's the hardware. There's the Jalapeno and the little singles over here. I just got done tidying everything up. It now all runs from this this power supply, which I had originally purchased for my GPU Bitcoin mining rigs, which have since been retired. I'm also running 4 of the Block Eruptor USBs on this hub here, and even the hub is also powered from the power supply. That's also for comparison. I have here a Radeon HD 5850 graphics card, which is one of the ones I originally used in my GPU mining rigs. But each one of those little ASIC miner USBs does about the same hash rate as one of these cards. Now first, the Jalapeno. I got one of the first revision Jalapenos, so it still has the heat pipe heatsink. A couple people complained that when their miner got bumped around, the fan actually crashed into the fins on the heatsink, and it snapped the fan blades off. So after that, they switched over to an all aluminum heatsink for the Jalapenos. I actually bought this from a guy on the Bitcoin forums. I was getting antsy. I haven't been mining for a while, and I wanted to get back into the game, so I paid a ridiculous price for this guy. I paid 23 Bitcoins. It'll probably pay itself back, but it'll take a while, probably at least a year. But the little single, I paid for that in Bitcoins when they originally announced it. I should have just taken out of my bank account and converted that to Bitcoins. I would have saved a lot, because I ended up paying like 50 Bitcoins for this guy. They were only worth about $6 at the time. I actually ended up paying half of it with Bitcoins, half of it with US dollars, because they originally didn't announce this when the product series launched. I traded up from 2 jalapenos because that's all I really felt like risking at that time. That was probably about half of my Bitcoin stash. But luckily, I saw all the problems that were going on, and if I had been, in the 2nd or 3rd month orders, I probably would have canceled my order a long time ago. I only held on to it because I was, first week order. And I'm probably still going to see a decent return on this guy. Again, it'll probably take a while, at least 6 to 8 months, based on my current calculations. But it's still looking pretty good for this guy. Now, the Jalapeno was supposed to be a 4.5 gigahashes per second USB powered one. Since they had to bump up all the power ratings and stuff, these guys usually do a nominal 5 gigahashes now. But they're a lot bigger, and they require an external power brick, and they have a cooling fan. They were originally supposed to be entirely passive cooled. They marketed them as like an actual coffee warmer, like you put your coffee mug on top of it, but that didn't really work out. Basically, the Jalapeno has 2 ASIC chips in it, and the little single has 8, and then the single has 16, and then basically all they do is populate this other half of the board here, and then you'd have 2 of the heat sinks, each cooling a group of 8 chips. Now, since I got the first revision Jalapeno, they seem to use unbinned chips for those, and then some guys on the Bitcoin forums got hold of the new firmware they released from Butterfly Labs, so that you could tinker around with the firmware, and so people could make their own mining boards and buy chips directly from them instead of complete mining units. And they were reporting that the new firmware worked a lot better than the original one. So I went out and I bought the AVR Dragon, which is one of Atmel's higher end programmers. It has JTAG and can do high voltage serial programming. So I got this, I hooked it up, I flashed the new firmware, and this guy was doing about 5.2 gigahashes per second before. Now it's doing right about 8 gigahashes per second, probably about 7.9 after you exclude the hardware errors. This only cost me like $50, and I do a lot of stuff with Atmel microcontrollers anyway, so it's good to have a high voltage programmer and having the programming tools available for my other projects. So this was definitely a good buy, and even just from the increase in hash rate, this programmer probably would have paid for itself in about 2 months. The hardware itself, board design wise and from a design standpoint, is actually really well done. They had a pretty good bunch of board designers. Everything's well laid out. Obviously for the little single, they had to bump everything up a size, so everything's actually a lot more spread out. It's not nearly as crammed as the circuit board is on the Jalapeno. The little singles got redesigned so that they now use a PCI Express power connector, so that it's really easy for you to run them from an ATX power supply, which is really handy. Here's the power brick that comes with the little single. It's literally an exact clone of the Xbox 360 power brick. But I'm going to get into this later. I don't really like the what I see on the inside of this thing, but I'm going to pop it open and show you that a little bit later. And I'm sure you're going to ask about this guy. This guy is my little Arduino project. It's got an Arduino Nano over there, and basically all it does is it keeps an eye on the Jalapeno's status LED, and as long as it's blinking, everything stays normal. But if for some reason the Raspberry Pi crashes or something and it stops mining, then it'll see the LED stops blinking on the Jalapeno, and it'll start incrementing a timer. If the Jalapeno stays idle for more than 5 minutes, then it triggers this relay over here, which hits the reset header on the Raspberry Pi, and it'll reboot the Raspberry Pi. It's been a huge help getting this all up and running and having decent runtime. Since especially with the first versions of CG Miner and BFG Miner, they weren't too stable. I had several days where it would crash a few hours after I went to work, and then I've got 6-8 hours of lost mining time, and it was pretty frustrating. But now that I've got this guy running here, keeping an eye on everything, my downtime is barely even noticeable if this crashes. You'll see like a little dip on my Bitcoin mining pool graph, but keeps everything up and running without me having to be here, which is awesome. Now here's a shot of the CG miner running on my Raspberry Pi. You can see the little single is doing almost 31 gigahashes exactly. It seems to be a pretty hot unit. Based on what I've seen from other people's little singles, and especially the singles, they tend to run a little below spec. They say plus minus 10%, so a lot of them are often in that window, but this one seems to be one of the better ones. And you can see the Jalapeno there running at, it's showing almost 8 gigahashes exactly, so I'm pretty happy with those numbers. With everything total, the little single, the ASIC miner USBs, and the Jalapeno, I get almost exactly 40 gigahashes per second, which is pretty nice. I'm mining about a little over half a Bitcoin every 24 hours. Design-wise, as far as cooling is concerned for these guys, I'm not too happy with it. That's why I removed the case from both of these. The little single, when it was in the housing, ran at about 61-62 degrees Celsius. The way I have it set up now, I'm using this nice, they're Common Air Rotron blower fans. Now it runs at about 54 degrees Celsius, so a good temperature drop with that. And again, like I said earlier, with the fan noise, like this fan grill, it's really nice. It's actually machined out of a solid block of aluminum, but when you put it right up against the fan, intake fan, it makes really annoying whiny noise. Like here, if I put it over the Jalapeno fan, you can hear it. And that's what the single tended to sound like when it was running at the higher fan speeds. Also, if you have a single and there's airflow going this way, then heat from the first group of chips heats up the second batch of chips. It probably would have been better to do flow in the other direction so that they both get cool intake air. I mean, it works. They say the max temp for the ASICs is like 80 degrees C, so there's still a fair bit of headroom, but cooler's better. Who knows how long Butterfly Labs is going to be around in the future, so I don't want to have to send this thing back for warranty work in the future if I don't have to. Alright, now back to the power brick for the little single. Like I said earlier, it looks almost identical to an Xbox 360 power brick, but it feels pretty good. It's pretty heavy, and the plug's really nice. It's molded plastic, and a nice PCI Express connector. So I mean, it looks good, but I'm not too happy with it otherwise. The first thing I noticed was that, here, let me plug it in. And if you listen closely, it has a fan inside and it sounds terrible. They used a really crappy quality 40mm fan inside this thing to keep it cool. And I have my doubts about it lasting more than a year. Alright. Okay, so the heat sinking is fairly adequate. There's that little cooling fan that sounds like crap. Soldering quality is alright. But one of the first things I noticed is that right in there, there's the spot for your common mode choke noise filter, and it's been bypassed. So they cheaped out a bit there. Generic Chinese brand capacitors, who knows how long those are going to last. Okay, I got all those heat sinks out of the way. And overall, the construction and quality isn't too bad. They did a decent job on the sleeving. A lot of stuff was stuck down with silicone, so it could be a lot worse, but mainly, you know, they skipped out on the mains filter, 2 filtering caps, and at least the fuse is sleeved. This resistor over here has like fiberglass insulation around it. But this fan's junk. Maybe if you give it some oil, it'll probably be a little bit better. So I'm gonna say knock a point off for the junk brand capacitors, another point off for the junky fan, and then on the other side here, a point off for this bodge wire right here. So 7 out of 10. It'll probably work for a while, but this fan has me concerned. Once that takes a crap, this thing probably isn't going to take long to fail. Alright, so now onto the Jalapeno power brick. This one's all plastic sealed, so I'm going to have to use this vise to see if I can crack it open. Yeah, the design of this one's really basic, but at least if you look in here, if you can see it on the camera, there's an X capacitor and there is a common mode noise filter in there. So again, still off-brand capacitors, but I'd say this one's probably a step higher in quality compared to the little single power supply. Again, you'll probably want to keep this thing cool. Maybe put a fan near it if you plan on using it long term to power your Jalapeno. Alright, and there's with the heatsink removed. You can see the common mode choke there, capacitor, glass fuse. Design's really basic, but should be adequate. Transformer looks like it's pretty decent quality. About the only thing I can really knock this one for is the off-brand capacitors. Okay, so overall, I'm pretty happy with the design of the little single and the Jalapeno. Not so much with the little single power supply. Jalapeno's power supply is probably alright. But again, if you're thinking about purchasing from Butterfly Labs, it's probably not a good idea at this point. They're barely shipping out little singles and mini rigs. It seems the Jalapenos are the only thing they're shipping in reasonable quantity. And in Bitcoin mining, efficiency is king. If you don't have a decently efficient Bitcoin miner, you're going to be out of the profitability loop pretty quick. There's a lot of new players who are claiming they have new awesome ASIC Bitcoin miner chips at ridiculously small project sizes, like 28 nanometers. So, I mean, from what I've seen, Bitfury has shown working prototype chips, and there's some board designs coming out for that already. And Bitfury is a lot more efficient than Butterfly Labs chips. There's also a KNC miner. There's no chips or anything for that, but those two seem to be some of the most promising companies promising next generation Bitcoin ASIC miners. So thanks for watching. If you have anything you want me to cover in more detail, feel free to leave a comment.